story that should also wind up those poor fools who've fallen down the vaccine conspiracy rabbit hole. I'm talking about the possibility of a jab to prevent lung cancer. A jab that, if it comes to fruition, has its theoretical roots in the science behind the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. I know that a whole lot of money from Cancer Research UK has been going into researchers to develop this. It's called LungVax, but when it actually gets to the science, I'll hold my hand up, and I'm not sure I'm the best person to explain it. But Professor Sarah Blagden, Professor of Experimental Oncology at the University of Oxford, who's running this trial, I reckon she can. Good morning to you, Sarah.
Good morning.
So, tell me about this vaccine. How likely, how hopeful are you that you're going to get there?
Super hopeful. Well, the reason we're super hopeful is because we've done quite a lot. We've been working on this for quite a few years. And it's based on some research that was originally started at the Crick Institute at UCL, where they found that even smokers, quite early on, the cells lining their lungs start to become abnormal way before cancer actually happens. And they start to present these flags, proteins, basically, on the surface of these cells. And they're flagging to your immune system. And what we're trying to do is we've gathered those flags, those proteins, and we put them into the vector, as you said, the one that was used for the COVID vaccine, so that your body's immune system is then taught to recognize these abnormal cells years before cancer starts.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. They're called neoantigens. It's a weird phenomenon that now that we're so much better at being able to sequence cells, you can actually start to see what they're doing.
I have to ask you this question, and it goes against my nature, but some of my colleagues here at LBC are young and naive, and they smoke. And one of the questions they asked was, if I was a smoker, if this vaccine becomes available, can I take the vaccine and carry on smoking? What a sad question to ask.
The vax and relax kind of philosophy.
Yes.
I think that, no, there's no substitute for stopping smoking.
You're hearing that, gang? You write this down. Thank you, Prof.
You have to stop smoking first. No, you should stop smoking, but even after you stop smoking, your body is quite unforgiving, and it will remember that legacy of smoking damage will remain in your body for quite a long time afterwards. And as I said, it takes about, well, we know that it takes about 8 to 10 years for lung cancer to actually develop from its earliest stages. So that is why we feel that the vaccine will hopefully eradicate that long-term damage to some degree.
When and how much are the other two pressing questions? When might we see it?
Well, at the moment we've got funding from Cancer Research UK and this other Spanish charity called Chris Cancer to manufacture the vaccine, which we're doing at the moment, and we'll be then testing it for a bit. And then we're opening a clinical trial, hopefully January 26th, and we'll start recruiting patients then. And if that's successful, we're hoping that it could be part of the sort of national lung screening that's going on in the UK at the moment.
Wow. Wow, that just blows my mind. And then
this is the tip of the iceberg.
I was just about to ask that this science, the antigens as flags, as red flags, presumably you can apply that to other cancers.
Absolutely. So we've got other programs looking at whether we can do a similar thing and develop vaccines against colorectal cancer for people who have something called Lynch syndrome and other conditions. And we're just sort of going through them. I mean, this is just the beginning.
I'm so glad you mentioned Lynch syndrome. It's like my family had, and they mainly died from bowel cancer. I don't have. And I think the world of cancer research is waking up to these genetic flaws. We know about BRCA for breast cancer, and it's just
BRCA is another topic. Yeah,
it's wonderful to hear a woman of science feeding back on this, because this is the hope for the future. Really.
Well, I think there's just a whole sort of philosophy that we need to sort of suddenly reach, that cancer could actually become a totally predictable and preventable disease.
There are so many philosophical questions that then follow that. We'll have to save it for another time, but really, from the bottom of my heart, Professor Sarah Blagden, thank you for giving up your time this Sunday morning, because that is a cracking story. We're going to be talking about whether a six-figure salary, earning £100,000 a year, means whether or not you should be entitled to taxpayer-funded benefits. That'll be after the headlines. You're listening to Matthew Wright on LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, as the day of mourning begins for the victims of a terror attack in Russia on Friday, President Putin is still claiming Ukraine is to blame. 133 people died in a mass shooting at a concert hall near Moscow. Many more were injured. 11 people have been arrested and Islamic State has claimed responsibility. But Russia expert Alexander Sotov says it doesn't suit Putin's rhetoric. He gave LBC other examples where the truth didn't suit.
This Beslan school siege was used as a pretext to abolish most of the local direct elections in Russia. Then a musical hostage crisis in 2002 was used to crack down on media freedoms and so on. So we can definitely expect something. So how the Kremlin could benefit from the events like this.
Ukraine denies any involvement. Meanwhile, Poland says a cruise missiles violated its airspace after Russia launched a wave of airstrikes at Ukraine. Multiple explosions have hit Kyiv and the border town of Lviv, with the whole of Ukraine now placed on alert. The armed wing of Hamas says a 34-year-old Israeli hostage has died because of what it says is a lack of medicine and food. This comes as the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for aid to flood into Gaza, saying it's either surge or starve.
A long line of blocked red relief trucks on one side of the gates. The long shadow of starvation on the other. That is more than tragic. It is a moral outrage.
Israel denies preventing aid trucks getting into Gaza. A Labour frontbencher has told LBC the party is committed to increasing the number of workers in the NHS. Responding to the Princess of Wales diagnosis for cancer, Chair Annalise Dodds says she wants cancer waiting times to come down.
When I've discussed this, and I have visited different hospitals to talk with them, that was particularly about breast cancer and how we can better deliver services there. They've consistently said the biggest issue is the workforce, both recruitment and then retention as well. And, you know, for many of those staff, they want to provide an excellent service, but they're just too stretched at the moment. So we do need to be seeing those extra, doctors and nurses going in.
The government unveiled its 15-year workforce plan in June last year. And Sven-Göran Eriksson has achieved his long-held dream of managing Liverpool. He helped oversee a charity match yesterday. The former England boss was invited by the club after revealing in January that he has terminal cancer.
LBC Weather.
With Ripple Energy. Part own a wind farm and take control of your energy.
A largely dry day for most of us with some sunny spells, staying breezy with a high of 12 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Jenny Barsby.
You'll have to go a long way to match a Volkswagen in match trim. They have all the bells and all the whistles. So whether it's a reliable hatchback, a super versatile SUV, or one of our exceptional all-electric ID models, you get extra spec as standard with every one of our 10 match trims. More Volkswagen for your money. Visit your Volkswagen retailer for our latest offers and more. Extra spec versus nearest equivalent VW trim. Visit volkswagen.co.uk for full details. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Matthew Wright.
Yes, indeed, it's me, Matthew Wright, serving you breakfast this Sunday morning. I hope you're having a relaxing Sunday, whatever you're doing. Unless, of course, you're driving professionally, in which case I hope you're concentrating and keeping your eyes on the road. In this hour, I want to ask how much you have to earn to be rich, and at what point your earnings are considered great enough that you no longer qualify for taxpayer-funded state aid. Is someone on a six-figure salary deserving of taxpayer support, of your support, ladies and gentlemen? Because our Chancellor, the millionaire Jeremy Hunt, made some, I think, extraordinary comments on Friday after one of his constituents, a lady from the frightfully posh town, Surrey town of Godalming, complained the government's promised but troubled free childcare initiative, which rolls out next month, was not being rolled out to those earning 100 large or more. I mean, how dare they forget those on six-figure salaries? Amazingly, Jeremy Hunt, who's been in successive Tory cabinets presiding over ever greater financial chaos and debt, didn't snap back, "What are you talking about? We don't give taxpayer handouts to the rich." But of course, to a millionaire like Hunt, you're not rich on 100 grand a year, are you? You're not even paying the top-rated tax. Then who does, darling? You just need a better account. Indeed, Hunt noted out loud, and quote directly, "I am aware that it is not a huge salary in our area if you have a mortgage to pay." Okay, but who was in charge when mortgage rates shot up? The Tories. Who's just left pensioners, the strongest cohort of Tory voters, £8 billion worse off? Jeremy Hunt. And which party is always talking up benefit cuts? Who slashed disability support? Who's vowed to crack down on work-shy scroungers, even though nearly 40% of universal credit claimants are actually in work? Yeah, of course, it's the nasty party. But the nasty party suddenly become all extra nice now when they're talking to the rich. Or maybe you don't think 100 grand a year is rich. Should we just call them the well-off? Yeah? So they're being very nice to the well-off, the Tories. Now, I have earned more than 100 grand in my life, and I've earned a lot less. And when you're on 100k, you are isolated from life's most persistent troubles, i.e. paying your bills, putting food on the table. If you then, because you're earning well, buy a house you can't afford, well, that's not the taxpayer's fault, is it? So why is Jeremy Hunt minded to be so generous to those who can pay their own way, but have chosen to spend their money on things they may now be struggling to afford? Isn't the whole point of means testing state aid to ensure that the neediest get it, not someone on 100 grand? But, and this is where I get a bit wobbly, the lady's complaint was the lack of state support for big earners who want their kids in the government's soon-to-be-extended free childcare scheme. And I guess if someone can't afford childcare, even on an eye-popping wage, the Treasury, I'm guessing, would take a bigger hit from that person not working, not paying tax, if they were doing childcare and staying home to look after the kids, than it would from paying the benefit out. So maybe, because it's not going to be a lot of people on £100,000 a year claiming free childcare, free nursery care, maybe it works out. Working parents can receive free childcare for youngsters aged 3 or 4. The current rules state those eligible individually must earn more than 8,600 a year, but less than 100 grand a year. But at the budget, Jeremy Hunt raised the cut-off for child benefit from, I think, 60 grand to 80,000. So if the Tories now think that someone on 80 grand is deserving of some kind of taxpayer-funded support, no one's complaining about that. So maybe 100 grand is okay. Maybe 100 grand and needing taxpayer-subsidised support is a reflection on the fact that things are so damn expensive these days. God, I'm starting to feel sad for big earners. I'm going to turn first to John T. Bloom, business journalist, for a bit of guidance. I'd love to hear from you as well, dear listener. 03456060973. If you're not on 100 grand a year, don't worry about the cost. We can call you back. But good morning to you, John T., first of all.
Good morning.
Good morning. At first glance, it seems preposterous to suggest that someone on 100 grand needs state aid, but I'm slowly talking myself into the possibility that maybe when it comes to childcare, there's a case.
Well, you make a good point, which is that we do want to encourage people into the workforce, and we have this problem. We have lots of people who are economically inactive, and a lot of those are women, and it principally is women who stay at home to look after the children, because childcare is so expensive that if they go out and work, they can't earn enough to pay for the childcare. So they're better off not working and staying and looking after the children. That is a problem. But it probably doesn't affect people who earn over £100,000. That's the top 3% of earners, right? 97% of the British population earns less than that, and a lot less than that. Average wages are about £34,000 a year. So a third of that. And it is ridiculous.